Hello, welcome to the 2019 Milwaukee Film Festival. I'm Chris from Milwaukee Movie Talk and the Milwaukee Twisted Dreams Film Festival. I'm here with Mark Patton, star of the film Scream apostrophe Queen, My Nightmare on Elm Street. It's very important that I get that apostrophe because context is everything. I was calling it Scream Queen, but it's Scream Queen.
Yeah, Scream Queen, yeah.
And there's Tyler Jensen and Roman Kimienti. I was close. I was practicing that name.
Right. And I'm Steve.
Oh, that's Steve. You guys all know Steve. He's a creeper in the background. But thanks for spending some time with us, guys. I know that you have a super crazy schedule. This is playing all over the country. Mark, what's the reception been of the film?
Oh, it's been fantastic. We're really super excited. We just went on Rotten Tomatoes with 100%, and I think we have about 50 five-star reviews to back that up with, so we'll be at 100% for a long time. And the audiences have been great, and we really are traveling, actually beginning now, the world, but we've met some really incredible people. Yeah, it's great.
That's great. I noticed you guys played in Sweden, too. How was the reception in Sweden? I know they're diehard horror fans in Sweden.
Well, actually, I think Jack got to go there, Jack Shoulder, who's not with us right now, and it went over very well. Copenhagen, I think, is where Copenhagen. And we played in, there are some places we can't be in two places physically at the same time. We're starting to separate. Like in the coming week, they're going to be in Provincetown, and I'm going to be in Miami, Fort Lauderdale, and it'll be our first time separating. But we're getting so busy now that we can't cover all the waterfront. So, and we're going to be we were in Dublin. I think that was the original European break there. Wow. So yeah, it's everywhere.
London is coming up.
London, yeah, Soho in London, and Turin, Italy, and I'm sure they're begging us to come to Australia, so if we can make that flight, we will. You know, I don't know if I can do the flight, though. I think I would rather swim to Australia than get on a plane and go for that amount of time.
Absolutely.
We drove here, and boy, it was like fantastic. We came from, where did we come from?
Minneapolis.
Minneapolis.
The colors were fantastic.
And we didn't have to get on an airplane, which was like the best thing in the world, so we had fun. Yeah.
And the weather's not too bad yet.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
No, give it another month.
Yeah.
This is Wisconsin.
We came from summer still in New York, so the fact that we have to wear jackets
and it's autumn.
Cover up
Yeah.
and not sweat our faces off.
And not get on an airplane. You know, airplanes are really tough
The
now.
only screaming children this time around was us. So that was the best part.
Donuts and like food and everything. Yeah.
Right.
Anyway, so we're going to talk about a little horror here, guys.
Yeah, let's talk about, of course, you're best known for Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge, which was the first Nightmare on Elm Street movie that I saw. So this is kind of a special interview that I had because you're one of the first, recognizable horror figures that I had when I was a kid. I saw it when I was 13. I had a cool mom that took me to the theater. I saw that. That came out in November, and Return of the Living Dead came out a couple months ahead of that. So that was my real introduction to horror. So.
Well, that's fantastic because I travel with those people all the time. So, like, we're kind of like hooked together.
They're great
Return
people.
of the Living Dead and Nightmare on Elm Street. Yeah, well, thank you. A lot of people saw Nightmare on Elm Street 2 first because, like, of maybe a little younger than you, because it was on free TV all the time. Mm-hmm. It was the only one that was always on television. So, a lot of people, that was their entry into horror. And I'm always grateful. I'm like, love you, you know.
So I heard a rumor that you actually beat out Brad Pitt for the part of Jesse. Is there any truth to that?
Well, I guess there is. Yeah. You know.
So you can go tell people that I beat out Brad Pitt on a leading role in a major motion picture.
Exactly, and then he could say for my friend Jeff, who was like down to the two of them for Thelma and Louise, and it's like it's like that. Do you know what I mean? It's like that's what it's like. I remember once I was auditioning with Tom Cruise for something, and I remember him walking off down the road, and it was for some war movie, and I thought, that boy is a movie star. As I walked, and like he was unknown, but he seemed to disappear into the mist, and I was like he's got it. He's for real, and he got that movie, which he was killing people. Taps, that's what it was called. Taps, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but yeah, there was there was a pool of boys when I was really viable in Hollywood, which honestly there were about 6 or 7 blonde guys, 6 or 7 brunettes who were in contention for everything. Mm. And if the movie was cast, it was going to be one of those people that did it. So yeah, I traveled with those people a lot for a long time when they were just poor and trying to scrape money together for gas,
Mm-hmm. That's great.
Yeah, we have a couple of friends who are billionaires now that like used to rent the back of my, the back of our house. One was a dog. Robert Downey Jr. was my dog walker for a while.
Really?
Yeah, and Sarah Parker lived in our back. My lover and I, we had a house, and she would rent the back bedroom and hang out there. Now,
Wow, that's crazy. That's crazy. That's crazy. So being a part of a documentary, it's a very personal journey for you. How hard was it to share these personal stories on film for the whole world to see?
Well, these guys were really good. Roman and Tyler were really good at. Well, we had an agreement by the time we really got into this full steam. We completely trust each other, and it didn't really start out as just a documentary about me, and it is so much more than just me. But I was like when the people see the documentary, they'll understand I was just sort of built for this. It's very natural to me. I'm not very guarded emotionally. I don't really have secrets any longer. Because the key to me for unlocking secrets was when I discovered the power of my glove, right? I put it on one day. I looked in the Wikipedia, and there were only 100 people that were HIV positive in the world, and they were the same ones. And so when I was going to talk about my HIV status, I put the glove on, and I was on CNN the next morning, international. And once you kind of say that in public and you expose your personal life on a really deep level like that, there's really nothing left to hide except for those porn pictures that are out there someplace, So I was I felt very safe, I felt very safe with them. And you can see it on the screen, that you can see that there's a lot of empathy and respect that goes between the filmmakers and myself, and actually all the people, because a lot of those people were surprised. I mean, they didn't know what they were talking about. They were making an Elm Street documentary, right? And then all of a sudden they were like, and now about Mark's personal life, how do you, and they, I can say this with knowledge, they all loved me and cared about me, so they showed up for me, and that's what they did. Even somebody like David Chaskin, the writer, who is really the foil in the documentary. I think actually there was a little bit of love there too, which made him show up. Even though he was my nemesis, and I don't think we'd be good. Well, maybe actually we would be good friends in another life, but the fact that he shows up is amazing. Because if somebody was doing a documentary about their life and I was the person that had hurt them and they were cutting the documentary and making it, I don't think I would show up and let him do it, But he did.
Yeah, that conversation, it's kind of the climax of the film, your conversation with David Chaskin. You looked really emotional during that conversation.
My eyebrows were working overtime.
Yeah, you looked, you were really emotional. Were you able to finally find peace with him and really forgive him? And
yeah, well, that he didn't really apologize to me, so
that's how I took it.
Yeah, he did the your dad apology, I'm sorry if you feel like you got hurt. My fault.
I took it that he looked kind of smug and just not really apologetic. So
well, like sociopathic on a certain level. Yeah, he and Jack both have that kind of older generation dad kind of thing going on, where it's just you're having a feeling, shut up, I don't want to feel. Yeah. Although Jack has really transcended that, I have to say, in the years since the documentary. But in that moment, of course, it was very intense, and it was set up to be intense. They did a really good job of setting the scene, and there was a storm and everything, and the camera stopped working, and it's just everything that you wanted.
We hired the storm crew. We made sure to speak really slowly so that the time took super long, and right when we got to the climactic part of the conversation,
You made the battery run out.
We made the battery run out, so they had to just sit in silence for an extra 5 minutes, not speaking, so we could change tapes and then let them collect their thoughts and just talk very calmly.
But it all seemed to be right. Like they say, there's a moment in the film where I'm sure I was in a blackout, because when I saw the film, I said, "Oh well, obviously you cut me in there. There's a cut here, because he would have never said that to my face." And when he says the scream like a woman thing, and you just see me, you see the you literally see the oxygen go out of me. Wow. And, and it's I know what that feels like. I had never actually seen it on myself before, but it was pretty powerful. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't want to be sitting on the other side of that, because I recoil and then I go. And I've never been mean, but you have to know that it's like, it's 35 years later and I'm sitting across from him with a camera on us, and we're settling a score, and that's how deep my memory goes, you know, and, but I just think, you know, honestly, I just think it was all meant to be. I really do. I say sometimes when we're out on the road that I actually think that I made Nightmare on Elm Street 2 so that I could make this movie, so that I could make Scream Queen. And Scream Queen is obviously a very different kind of movie, but I tell anybody who's like a fan of the movie, Nightmare on Elm Street, if you're a Elm Street fan, you are going to love this movie.
Yeah, I'd
And
agree.
if you've never seen Elm Street, you're going to love this movie because it's a very identifiable. If anybody's ever like kind of crapped on you, and it's haunted you your whole life, and you wanted to go back and fix it, anybody that's happened to, and I think that's the whole world, will identify with what's going on in this movie. And so those little digs that wake you up 35 years later and you're like, damn, I can't believe I let him say that to me, you know? So we're super, super proud of the film. And I do forgive David. I wouldn't want to have dinner with him. And more than that, I can say this, I wouldn't want to be him. That's more than anything. I do have a sense of compassion for him because he seems to be the type of person that anybody who's in the room, he'll say what you want to hear. If you want to hear a good story, he'll tell you one. You know, and I know I have integrity, and I surround myself with people who do have, and I pity people who don't, because you're lost at sea.
Yeah.
I mean, we know how to get to shore. We might get away from the shore too far, but we always know how to get back. And I don't think
in Australia, but
right.
we'll get there.
Well, yeah, well, you might end up in Australia, but we don't get too far from the shoreline when it comes to integrity, you know. So, and I think that's a gift, you know what I mean? Like, to be an honest person and to be a cool person is like, it's not to be underestimated, because it is a gift to be that kind of person, you know. So
My personal motto is be kind, forgive others, and help others. That's the way I live. So one of the key people that I thought was missing from this documentary was Bob Shea. Did you guys approach him to be in the documentary at all? What were his thoughts?
All right. No, we didn't approach Bob Shea. I didn't really feel like it was about him at all. This was more of we were following Mark, and the more this progressed, the more I realized this is he has a journey to take, and Bob Shea is a businessman, and he can talk about the business side. He wasn't part of Mark's story. He wasn't involved in the aftermath of, and you watch the documentary, so you know that it's more than just what happened on set. That's just the spark of everything afterwards. So I didn't really feel like Bob Shea needed to be a part of this.
Well, I think it's a wise technical thing too, because like we were dealing with, first of all, anything that has me in it is fair game. Do you know what I mean? Like for a few seconds or whatever. But you also have to deal with the rights to Nightmare on Elm Street too. And like Bob doesn't own it anymore. But I mean, he sold everything to Warner Brothers. But Bob Shea is a billionaire who lives in a $27 million house in the middle of the Hamptons. So he doesn't really stick his head out too much for anything. But he now has gone on the record liking what we're doing with this.
Okay.
And like that I've claimed this and I'm putting it in its rightful place.
Was he a hands-on producer when the film was being made, or did he just put up the money and say, make it?
Oh, no, he was there. But, well, you know, from the bar, he really wanted to be an actor. He wanted to play Ron Grady's father, but Jack wouldn't let him because he said he wasn't a good enough actor to do it. But, like, those people that are the father and mother are just the worst actors I've ever seen. Ron! And so he played the bartender, and, you know, so, which I think is iconic. There's that scene it's a 3-shot of Bob, Marshall Bell, and myself in the bar where I'm getting a drink. I'm thinking, if you get an autograph on all 3 of those, that's a trifecta. You'll have like that's a money spot. But he did come back. I know he was in at Grauman's Chinese Theater for the anniversary of the 3rd one, and he spoke, and he spoke to the press about this one. So I think, you know, when we go to pick up our Academy Award, he'll nod at us, you know.
Okay.
No. I like to feature it out that way, you know, so that like I see. No, but I think he is actually thrilled with this.
That's great.
Yeah. The person that I think is most interesting is Wes. And
That was going to be another question.
okay, well, you ask that question, then I'll answer it.
Do you know how Wes felt after Freddy 2 was released? Well, I know his general thoughts. He wasn't happy with it, but do you know how he felt about all the controversy that followed it?
Well, I can tell you the whole real story and like a very concise thing. I liked Wes Craven. Do you know what I mean? But he's got a black mark on his soul as far as I'm concerned. And because what happened was he directed the first movie. He did not want it to be a series. He was adamant. It was a one-film thing. But Bob had leveraged the first film to make it the movie. So he was broke. So he had to make the second one. So Wes walked away. We stepped in. We made a movie that made a lot of money and was critically well received. So, and then Wes stepped back in when he realized it was going to be a franchise and make a lot of money. He took all the money that we made and made part 3 and did the thing that you should never do to your peers. He ignored us. So there's no way that we couldn't be an outlier. Do you know what I mean? There's no way that our film would ever fit into that canon. So I like to tell people just see our movie as a standalone and you'll be happier. That's the way I see it. And because it was maliciously ignored. And that has to do with his own ego, you know?
Yeah, that's a shame. Part 2 is one of my favorite Nightmare films. It really is.
Well, I had a way that, like, you know, it's like if he would have only, like, people don't listen to actors, and they really should. It's like I would have told him, look, this is not what you started with, but this is where you are. So why don't you have Nancy be the interlocutor of the dream world, Jesse be the real world. They have to fight together to trap Freddy somewhere in the end. And then you've got a story, right? But he wasn't interested in doing anything but what he was doing with Heather, you know? And I mean, he saw Heather as Jamie Lee Curtis. And I don't even think that he understood what he was creating when he created Freddy. I think he was trying to create another Jamie Lee Curtis. His thing was about the girl. And I think Freddy was a happy accident, honestly.
Yeah.
And it was a combination of Robert Englund meeting that part, them getting rid of him, you know, because he wasn't going to be in the second one. And they started shooting without him. Well, then he had control of negotiating the contract, right? So the first one is starring Heather Langenkamp, the second one stars Mark Patton, the third one stars Robert Englund. And after that, you see the movies just go off the rail because it becomes the Robert Englund show, because he's in control, because without him, they can't do it. And so it was serendipitous for everybody. You know, I mean, they made their $1 billion, which was great, and they made a lot of great movies with that money. You know, you wouldn't have Lord of the Rings, you wouldn't have a lot of movies had it not been for Nightmare on Elm Street. So I always say we're the cornerstone. If we wouldn't have made any money, it would have all gone away. So I'm proud of our spot.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm not afraid of taking my own stuff and announcing it, because you know what? If you don't take it and announce it yourself, nobody will give it to you, because they'll take credit for themselves. You know, that's what they do. But I've spent a lot of time thinking about this. This all affected me in a really profound way over the course of a lifetime. And so I've studied it and I've talked to people, and, you know, I can concisely put it into a file and disseminate it. So I'm going to disseminate it in my direction so that I sound good, because that's what everybody else is going to be doing, you know.
So do you think that, do you see the LGBTQ community being represented better in film nowadays than back then?
What do you guys think? Do you think this?
I mean, it's better. We're still striving to get to where we want to be. I do think there's a lot to do, but I do think that it's now conversation that can be had. Where back then, Nightmare on Elm Street 2 was the first horror movie I saw as well. We're the same age probably. So it was everything for me. I didn't know exactly why, but it just was, I could identify with that. And so as the years went by and the reputation sunk lower and lower and people were dismissing it, I always thought that movie's great. Why is it being dismissed like this? You know, and people are like, oh, it's garbage. We don't like that one. I just felt like if you can dismiss it because you think it's gay, if I'm gay, then I am then I am thrown away the same way. There was a chip on my shoulder about that, and I always felt like that's going to be the catalyst for me coming out with Scream Queen and that's, I can add my voice to that. So I think that's where we are now. We're coming out, but I don't think the representation is fully there yet.
What about specifically in horror film? Because I feel like,
Oh, in horror.
I mean, in general, you definitely get more representation. It's starting to be more talked about, but I feel like horror is still not really talked about, like hasn't really broken through as a, in any sense of with the LBG community.
No.
Right. We definitely Get Out is the success of the last decade by winning an Academy Award and being a viable genre film, but also talking about social issues. We're waiting for that for the queer community as well. And I feel like if you can articulate the fear that is inherent being gay in society and show it to people who aren't gay and have them understand that, that's where the power lies. If you can transcend that, then we will have made it.
Well, I have a particular pet project, that's I love this movie that won TIFF in 2015 called Closet Monster, and Connor Jessup is the star of it. And it's not really a horror movie, but it is. But it's laid on top of Nightmare on Elm Street 2. It's the same story about a coming out kind of story. And he has things going wrong with his stomach, and there's a brutal, a rape in the beginning of it, just like there is in It, right? What we're trying to get away from is that, that horrifying feeling, like if you're gay and you sit down in a movie theater and they have a gay bashing at the beginning, okay, so you wake up and you're not in a safe place, so you turn into yourself, right? And then later when the boys kiss and there's that nice girl in the back who's making vomiting noises, and all of a sudden every gay person in the audience is 10 years old again. That's what we're really going against. But I think, honestly, we're well represented. I think we're on the verge of something really exciting right now because the paradigm has shifted. Like gay people they were looking for this straight, cis male gay guy who was going to go in and pass as straight, but really be gay and surprise everybody and be a movie star. And that's not what we're looking for anymore. We're looking for Billy Porter to spring out of the cake in a drag dress and be a movie star at the same time that everybody in the world loves. And I think what's going to happen, which is really, really exciting, and it's going to happen because of people like Ryan Murphy and Dustin Lance Black, is that Ryan Murphy has committed to everybody above the line is gay, lesbian, trans, pansexual, because he's going to level the playing field and he's got a lot of power. So you're going to see a lot of gay directors come in, a lot of lesbian directors, trans directors, and those people have been marginalized. Watch Drag Race, right? See how fabulous those costumes are? Now move that person to the center and they're directing the movie. They're not just making the costumes or painting the faces. It's out of those fantastic minds that you're going to start seeing movies. And I think we're going to have a renaissance very quickly of really super fabulous movies that are rolling down the pike. And I plan on being right in the front row and watching every one of them and cheering them on, and buying tickets, and I think that's what's happening myself, honestly. So I'll be a spokesman for the gay community.
That was another one of my questions. I just got one more question. Do you feel a sense of responsibility in the gay community as being a role model?
I feel a sense of destiny to be a role model. And I'll tell you a quick story. It's a nice way to end. These boys know the story, so they know it's a good one. But when I was 20 years old, my friends had me a birthday party, and they invited a psychic. And the psychic was going to read everybody's fortune. Now, this is pre-AIDS, okay? So I go into the room, and she's like, I know what you want to know. You know how famous you're going to be and how many autographs you're going to sign. But that's not what I'm going to tell you. You are, and you're not, and you will. But you're going to watch all of your friends die, every one of them. And you're going to be safe in the center of what's coming, but you're going to be a witness to a Holocaust. And you're going to witness each of these people. All of those people are dead, right? I'm 61 years old, and I'm traveling the world witnessing to that story. So I feel like it was all meant to be. So I do feel a profound sense of I'm supposed to be doing this, but I'm moved along by wind that's kind of divine. And I realize if I just show up and when the door appears, walk right through it, that it'll all be taken care of. And that's why we have utter faith in what we're doing, because we've each come to, I think, believe that, because we've watched it happen time and time and again with our movie. when we needed something, we had to work our asses off. I mean, we paid for this thing, and we had nickels and dimes at a time. But we did the work. And when we did the work, and we worked really hard, but it was time for us to step through a door that was impossible, somebody showed up and opened it for us. And I think they're going to open us all the way to the end, So, yes, I do. And I'm glad to do it. I think they picked the right person in me. So, because I enjoy it too, And I love my young brothers and sisters, and I want to take care of them. I want to make sure that nobody ever has to go through what I went through, And just to be shamed on an international basis is not for the lighthearted. It'll make a man out of you. It'll make a gay man out of you.
All right. Well, thank you, Mark Patton, Kyler Jensen, Roman Camienti,
Unbreakable Kimienti.
Scream Queen, My Nightmare on Elm Street. It's going to be screening at a bunch of film festivals. You guys are still taking this on the road?
Yes, we're here tonight in Milwaukee. We're going to New York City for our New York premiere on
Miami?
Monday the 28th. Then we go to Yonkers, and then we split up. You go to Florida, we go to Provincetown.
Then Mexico City, which is my home, but we're going to the Mexican film Mordido Film
Mordido.
Festival, which is a big one in Mexico, and then we're going right around the world. And I think we might end up on Mars if we're lucky.
Well,
You can.
Awesome. We'll link the website where you can check out the dates and places down below. So definitely check it out if you can. It's a fascinating documentary. Guys, thanks again for joining us.
Thank you very much for having us. We appreciate it in this beautiful theater.
Once again at the Times Cinema 2019 Milwaukee Film Festival. Thanks, guys.